session and then share it with students afterwards, just so that they're able to get a chance to hear from Natasha. So just wanted to welcome you all. Thank you so much for being here this evening. I'm going to turn it over to Arcano, and he will be talking with Natasha about the work that she does. Thank you. He may be having technical difficulties, so I'm just going to go ahead and read the bio. So Natasha Marshall is joining us this evening. And she has her MPH and is a research associate at UTHealth School of Public Health in Houston, Texas. She earned a Bachelor of Science in Rehabilitation Services with a concentration in addictions in 2019 from Alabama State University. Immediately following, she completed her Master of Public Health degree in Health Promotion and Behavioral Science with a certificate in Health Disparities from UTHealth Houston in 2021. Along with her graduate school journey, she began recording videos on YouTube to document the ups, downs, and details of gaining an MPH, from finances to courses to internships and beyond. Currently, Natasha works in the reproductive health space as a research associate with a campaign at UTHealth called Own Every Piece that emphasizes women owning every piece of their body, including birth control and reproduction. Her current research is a qualitative storytelling project that focuses on interviewing women to gain stories about personal experiences from adolescence to now surrounding all reproductive health topics. Natasha's greatest piece of public health advice is to do what makes you happy in the field, remain fluid, and prioritize community impact before compensation. Natasha, we just wanted to welcome you and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So let us get started. So we had a couple questions that we wanted to ask you just to get some information about what you do as well as your advice for our students. So the first question that we had for you is, please share about the current work that you are doing with Own Every Piece, such as what your role is, what a typical day looks like, so on and so forth.
Okay. So right now I'm working on a storytelling project. So I do all of like the behind the scenes for that, which means scheduling the women when they sign up for interviews and handling the data. And I also run our social media page. So on the day-to-day, I'm usually posting on the stories, putting any posts that we need up, and then making sure our storytelling is okay. And then like after someone interviews, I have to send the interview off to a company to transcribe it so we can just solely have the words. And I also coordinate the gift cards because of course they're compensated for their time. So I coordinate everything within my project, but then there are multiple other projects that are happening under the campaign. So day to day, that's what I do. Sometimes it changes a little bit. Like this past fall, I was at Texas Southern University every week, giving out free emergency contraception kits and talking to students. So it really does change week to week. It all depends. Yeah. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I like the fact that you guys give gift cards to the women who share their stories, because I feel like oftentimes people aren't compensated for sharing their stories. So that's really awesome that you guys do that. So how did you first get involved with the campaign?
When I was a student, so the campaign is run by one of my old professors, and I used to go to their events just because it seemed like such a welcoming, fun, bright campaign. And I liked the fact that they always had good events. It was always really like women centered, and it didn't feel public healthy or like academic. It felt a lot more down to earth, and I really liked that. So yeah, I started going to the events when I was a student, and then my now boss hired me as a GA, a graduate assistant, when I was a student. And then when I was approaching graduation, she was like, hey, we want to keep you on. So this is going to be your job. So yeah, I really just continue my graduate position in an actual role.
Okay, so when you say more academic, or that it's not as academic, are you like saying that you kind of felt that the events weren't kind of like structured as like a study per se, more like a kind of relational, like get to know you event?
Yeah, they felt a lot more conversational and really just bright and welcoming. I feel like sometimes in public health, we tend to research the same issues over and over again. And like the example that you said, making people feel like they're in a study, it wasn't like that at all. And even when I interview women now, I've heard them say like, this really just felt like I was talking to a friend. So that's honestly the atmosphere that their events had. Like the very first event that I went to it was called Candid Conversations, ironically. And it was at Texas Southern University, and they had Angela Yee from the Breakfast Club come and really just talked all things reproductive health and what she's been through, and like women being more unapologetic about speaking about the different topics. Because Angela Yee has a podcast called Lip Service, where she digs deep into all of those topics.
That's really awesome. I love that. So how has your organization been impacted with the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
So of course, when it first happened, everybody was up in a frenzy, including me, because I run the social media, but we're under an academic umbrella. It makes it a little hard sometimes. So we immediately knew like we need to say something, put out some type of statement, but there are constraints because we're state funded. So there are certain things we kind of can't say explicitly. So we have to find our route in between there. So immediately everybody was just shocked, disgusted. Well, not really shocked because we're in Texas, but they were disgusted for sure. And it really put the storytelling project that I run a little bit on the back burner. And instead we pushed forward with sending out, we call them just in case kits. So the kits with emergency contraception. And we really pushed that initiative because we partner with a Black owned pharmacy here in Houston. So all women had to do was fill out a quick little sign-in sheet, and the kit was mailed to their homes. That way it's like, yes, abortion is being limited, but let us help give you another like contraceptive help, if that makes sense.
You mentioned something about being limited just due to specific state regulations due to funding. Do you feel that, or have you felt that throughout your experience there have been occasions where certain regulations and rules have limited the type of work that you can do?
I don't really feel like it limits the work we can do, because what we were doing before, has kind of always been. If anything, I think it just limits how we talk about what we talk about, because, technically we're not allowed to even mention legislation. We're not allowed to sway how people vote or anything like that. And we have to be careful, like with certain words. So if anything, especially with me running the social media, that's where I feel like it really made things hard, because I would see things that I really wanted to post, but I had to step back and say, is that a little bit too militant? Like, will I get in trouble for posting it? So, and on our campaign Instagram, me and my boss have a direct message, and I'll send her something like, is this too crazy to post, or is this okay?
Always nice to have accountability or someone you can bounce ideas off of for sure.
Yes.
When did you first realize that you wanted to pursue a career in public health?
My senior year of undergrad, as crazy as it sounds, originally I wanted to do physical therapy, and I went through everything, like getting all the hours and shadowing a physical therapist. And I loved the office that I shadowed and went to. But one day when I was sitting in class, I was just reflecting over everything. And I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore, because even though I really enjoyed the patients, I felt like it was a pretty, like, once you've healed this ailment, you've kind of done it all. You're just doing it with a different person. So and there were a lot of times like in the office where it was so slow, I would almost be dozing off. So I kind of wanted a job that wouldn't bore me. And I looked at physical therapy school as a step under medical school. So I wanted to be completely convinced. Like, I don't want to be iffy about it at all, because it's going to be hard. So I need to be completely in if I was going to do it. So once I figured out that I didn't want to do it, firstly, I told my parents, and I was so nervous that they were just going to be so mad at me, but they weren't. And I immediately withdrew from physics because I didn't need physics anymore. And that class was so hard. I was so happy to be able to drop that from my schedule.
I definitely understand that. It's funny that you say that you from physical therapy. I'm currently transitioning out of physical therapy to do public health. So it's kind of like one of those small world things for sure.
Yeah.
So what steps did you take in order to get involved with public health research?
Honestly, I feel like I did skip some steps, mainly because, which I guess is why they say connections are so important. I really didn't have any experience in research besides taking an intro to qualitative research class. And that's the class that my boss taught me when I was a student. So she just knew that this project wasn't like your typical research project, and that you of course needed somebody with a little bit of warmth and personality. And she was like, hey, I think you'd be perfect. Do you want to be my GA? And that's really how it happened, because before that I was pretty anti-research, and I still like hovered the fence. Even though I'm a researcher, when it comes to the world of public health, I'm a little bit anti-research, because I think that a lot of problems are over-researched, and a lot of that money needs to be put into the solutions. Like, we know what the issues are, but they don't want to actually give the money to the organizations doing the work to solve the issue.
I definitely agree with that. I think it's encouraging, or it'll be encouraging for students to hear that even though research might not have been something that you had a ton of experience with, it's kind of just making those or finding those connections that you have in order to get those opportunities. And I also love the fact that you said that we need to be focusing on getting resources to the organizations that are already doing the work, because they are aware of the issues and they're aware of the populations and how to best reach those populations. So
Mhm.
with you 100% on that. Um, what advice would you what advice would you give to students who are currently pursuing their MPH?
Mm, like I put in the bio, I definitely really would remind people not to only pursue something for money, because I know, well, firstly, depending on what you do in public health, like, it's not tech, depending on what your position is. And that's all I'll say about that. But also, I had classmates that were into, let's say, the community. What was a major? It was a major that was like community health management or something like that. But then after seeing the stats about how much, let's say, a biostatistician or an epidemiologist made, they easily switched, and they hate their job, but they're making the amount they want. And me personally, I'm not willing to make that. I'm not willing to do that, because I don't want to make money and live an unfulfilled, unhappy life. So even though there's a lot of pressure to go with data and numbers, if you're not good at it and if you don't like it, don't force yourself to do it, because I'm terrible with numbers and stats and epidemiology. When I took those classes, let's just say I was very happy to be done with them. So even though it can be like, sometimes there's what's the word I'm looking for? I know you know the word, but I really can't think of it. Like when you're in a position, but you don't feel like you should be in that position. What's the imposter syndrome? There we go. I feel like imposter syndrome can really come in, especially when you're not passionate in one direct area, because I was a person that liked a couple different things, but there wasn't one area where I was like, yep, this is what I want to do. And I felt like all of my other classmates and friends had that one area that was theirs. So a lot of times it just made me feel like I was floating in space, but I got to see that that's not the worst thing in the world, because since I didn't have one direct area that I was going for, it kept my options really open. Yeah.
So with you not having a specific area that you originally are focused on, do you feel that now there's like a specific, do you think that right now what you do is kind of like your lane, or would you be open to switching to a different topic?
Eventually I would be open to switching to a different topic, but I think everything happens for a reason. And as odd as it may sound, I feel like my job now has kind of been like healing some of my childhood wounds around reproductive health and how it's framed and things like that, because the people in my campaign are really passionate about it, and we really emphasize talking about things that are taboo. And I very much grew up in that taboo household. So for a long time, my family didn't even know what I do. Some of them still don't know what I do. They're like, oh yeah, my sister's a doctor. And I try to tell them I'm not a doctor, but whatever you say. But I feel like hearing women's stories and interviewing them helps me too. So for right now, I'm happy with reproductive health. And I want to get some publications before I decide to shift any type of way.
Nice. Okay. What skills would you say have been the most helpful to you in the field?
This might sound odd. I'm trying to think of like hard skills that they teach you in school that has really been helpful. If anything, maybe like health communication, some of the health communication things that I learned. But for what I'm doing right now, of course, like just knowing how to do research has helped. Like coding when you interview people and finding like the main themes in the interviews. But if anything, being a social person has helped me the most in my job, because that's mainly what I do, is talk to women. So knowing how to communicate effectively and knowing how not to use super public healthy terms. And even with me running the social media page, that's definitely a focus. Like you want to be able to give people the information without sounding too organization-y. And yeah, that's why I really like the campaign, because it's not typical public health.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of the classes that I've taken um, throughout my MPH, they always mention that you need to be able to communicate in a way that the layperson would be able to understand. Not that you're talking to maybe like a colleague, but the information should be easy for everyone to understand. So you might have learned a really nice word that you want to throw in there, but if it's not necessary, don't use it. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that that's a focus of the campaign. Our next question for you is, what major challenges did you face during your MPH program?
Biostats. That class, oh my gosh. To be honest, the pandemic, I believe, is the sole reason that I pulled out with a B, because before that, all of my classes like were great, A's, maybe a B. But for that one, I was like, I'll be satisfied if I get a C as long as I don't have to take that class again. Numbers have never been my thing, but I really did try my hardest. That was definitely the hardest thing. And also, it was another class I took that was really hard. Well, it wasn't hard. It was just very time consuming. It was basically you drafting a program. I wish I could remember. Program evaluation. There we go. Where you had to like fully evaluate a program and is it effective? And what I found out is that normally that class, the project would be done in groups, but we had to do it individually. So there would be nights that I was just in here on my laptop, crying my eyes out, really. For undergrad, well, I'm the youngest of four. So undergrad didn't feel like a stretch. I did it. Of course, there were like some hard parts, but I just went through and it was something that I expected. But for grad school, I think that's when I really got challenged. So yeah, of course, biostats and epi challenged me because I'm not a numbers girl, which is why I do qualitative research now. Also, one thing that I feel, the finances of it kind of really stressed me out. Like when I graduated from undergrad, I didn't have any debt. So when I had to get a loan for my first year of my MPH, I had never done a master promissory note. Like I never had to worry about that type of thing. So my aunt sat me down. She's like, okay, let's read it together. Let's make sure this is okay. And as I was signing it, I started crying. As y'all can see, I'm an emotional person. And she was like, no, don't cry. Like it's just, it's you sewing into your future. So even though it wasn't a large loan, that's what everybody that had loans would tell me. Like, that's not even a large loan. And I'm like, yes, but I am now in debt. Like this is a huge shift for me. That was something that really did stress me out, but everything works out because I ended up becoming a AmeriCorps member, if you know what that is. So I was working in a clinic here and they pay you a stipend. And at the end of your term, they give you a education award. So the education award started paying for my semester. So I only had to take out money for my first year. The second year I paid off with the education awards. And then after I finished at the end, like at the end of my second year, which is when I graduated, that education award paid off majority of my loan. There was about $2,000 left that my parents paid. So there were times where I used to be stressed, like, how am I going to get rid of these? And everything worked out. So that was a huge mental challenge. Yeah. Even though I don't know why, because some people are like, I'm 100K in debt. I'm like, well, I'm not, and I don't want to be.
I feel that. If you don't mind sharing, how was your AmeriCorps experience?
It was really good. Like, I wouldn't change anything about it. I worked in Legacy Community Health, which is a FQHC here in Houston. And the location that I worked at was in Fifth Ward, which is a historically, poor neighborhood. And I feel like it really made a lot of things make sense from the classroom to actual use. It was a lot more case management-y because we worked with social determinants. So giving the patients, we would give them a survey while they were waiting for their appointments where they could identify if they had need in the area of housing, food, transportation, or utility help. And then we would connect them with resources. So I think it made me better working with people. It helped me brush up a little bit on my Spanish because we had a lot of Spanish speaking patients. Of course, we had translators, but we also had like a script that we would read to them to introduce what the form was and that type of thing. And it gave me good connections too, just in the Houston area, because both of my supervisors are very known. They're social workers, but they just have a lot of connections in the field. So I think it gave me really good roots in public health and in Houston because I was fresh and new to Houston. And yeah, it really helped me. After doing it, I said a lot more of the UT students need to be out in real communities doing this work, because sometimes I noticed in class, they would, how they say don't do the savior complex when you're working with the community? A lot of how they would talk in class gave, I'm here to save you. And I felt like it sounds good in the classroom, but are you really in the community? So after doing it, I realized that a lot more, that needs to be a requirement, not just, working on your computer. You need to be out in the community.
That's a really, really good point. I remember when I did like alternative spring break in college where we would go to different communities and serve there. And usually the first day orientation, I remember one place specifically in Detroit, they sat us down, made us aware that we are not here to say, you are not here to save people. Um, there's work that needs to be done. We're glad that you're here, but just be aware, like, this is not something that you go back home and post on Facebook and Instagram and be like, oh, look at what I did. No, we're here to volunteer. We're here to help. We're here to work alongside the people that have been doing this for years. So I definitely agree. We need to be more connected with the communities that we're in, because sometimes we're not even aware of the issues that are going on. And the best way for us to be aware is to be like immersed in those communities. So who knows, maybe in the future it will be a requirement.
Hope so.
What would you say that you like the most about your role? And then also, what do you like the least about your role?
Part of Okay, so for both of those, honestly, the freedom, I put that for I like it the most and the least. I'm kind of used to more structure. So when I first started, I almost like I knew what to do, but I didn't know what to do at the same time, mainly because I guess I'm used to a job where like at this time you do this, submit this. Like at the clinic, we were a lot more watched, I guess you could say. We had a lot more like strict deliverables. Like you do this every week, you turn this in, you need to be talking to this many people. But my job right now is very free flowing. So it's a pro and a con. Like I really do appreciate it. And I'm soaking it in because I just know that as I go to higher levels, that is not going to be a thing. Like you're going to have strict deadlines and, you might have supervisors that are a lot less friendly. I hope not, but it's a thing. So also, I really do like hearing the stories. You realize that even though some of us have come from different places and we're different cultures, a lot of women are very similar, and a lot of women that are embarrassed by certain things really shouldn't be, because I guarantee you're telling me this and I've probably heard at least 20 other women say the same thing. So I think it's been improving my talking skills, because you just have to get in there and sometimes ask uncomfortable questions, and some people cry and I have to not cry because I will. But yeah, I think it just helps. It's been helping mold me. And like I say, it has been helping with my traumas personally. Yeah.
That's awesome that you're able to kind of build a community by being there just to listen to them and share their stories. I feel like that's something that we need more of in the world today.
Yeah.
And the last question that I have for you is, what was your motivation behind starting your YouTube channel?
So the motivation was I went on YouTube because I love watching YouTube. And when I'm about to do something that I view as like large or sometimes scary, I like to watch other people do it first. So, like, for instance, when I was younger and I was afraid of roller coasters, I would watch the roller coasters at my Six Flags location just to get used to what it was going to be and to warm myself up for it until I actually got on it. So it was kind of the same thing when it came to my MPH. I searched because I wanted to see people going to class and doing this, and I really couldn't find it, especially not from Black women. So I made the decision like, okay, I'm going to start recording stuff when I go, because I would like to know more about what the classes would look like and what public health is. But there were very few, there was really, I think I found one girl maybe who actually showed the day to day, but most of the videos that I found about public health were very like, sit down, let me tell you what public health is. It's this, that, but not let's come to class with me, or these are the classes I've been taking, let me tell you how it's going. So that's what I really wanted. And since I couldn't find it, I decided to make it.
I absolutely love that. You saw that there was a need and then you decided, you know what, I'm going to do it. And because of that, there are people who are able to watch what you did and then get inspiration from you. And then hopefully in the future, you kind of get to hear about how you've impacted other people just by being willing to share your experience. So what kind of things could people who may never have watched your YouTube channel before, what could they expect to see?
Okay, well, I do have different playlists because now, of course, since I'm not in school, I don't share as much school content because I'm not there. I do share some work things, like when I'm doing something interesting at like events. So if you go back, you'll see like when I first came and started, me figuring out how to use the shuttles and going to class and what that was like. And then eventually I started doing semester recaps where I would talk about all the classes that I took, the grades I got in them, how it went in detail, things that I, of course, can't remember now. So I'm really happy I recorded that. And then I started doing more sit downs that were kind of just informational. I did one about AmeriCorps that explained like what the program was, the different branches, the things that you can get from it. And I'm trying to remember what other videos do I have? I know I have one that I recorded that's not out yet, but it should be out next week. That's like apps that I had on my phone that I use that help keep me organized and things like that. But when it comes to MPH stuff now, you'll mainly see work things. In fact, on my video today that I just put out, my boss, she was on my channel for the first time, and she told the people how she got introduced to public health, and she just knew that she was going to be an OBGYN, and then she discovered public health and decided to switch paths. So yeah.
That is really awesome. So thank you so much for just sharing a little bit with us today. I did want to open it up if anyone did have any questions for Natasha that we might not have asked while we were speaking. You can feel free to either unmute yourself to ask, or you could type it in the chat.
Well, I would just like to, I don't have a question, but I would just like to comment. And I do apologize for not being able to come on here sooner. But I would just like to say that I was one of those people who came across Natasha on YouTube, via YouTube, and I absolutely love her content. And like she said, I was looking for that person because when I found her, I knew I wanted to pursue my MPH, and I was doing research. But of course, I haven't started yet, and I was looking for that person to kind of give me little specific details about it. And it's funny. I was actually laughing when she was talking about the stresses that she had during her MPH program, because I can remember distinctively one of her videos where she covered, it was, I guess you said, the biostatistics class, where she was in the car having a whole breakdown about the class and how she just hated math and she's not a math person. Yeah, I watched a lot of your videos, Natasha. So I actually found, I mean, of course it wasn't funny at the time, but I found it funny how you went back to that. And also, of course, I was following with when you were talking about your family and the loans and how you didn't want to take out a loan and everything. So it was really good hearing that again. And I just would like to say that you definitely, you was a huge factor and a motivating factor with me in, coming into public health and, just pursuing public health and trying to finish this program. So I would just like to say thank you. And I guess I would call myself a fan of yours, of your YouTube channel. So I would just like to say thank you, and definitely thank you for coming on here and sharing your experiences of your program and everything. So I really appreciate it, because you didn't have to do that at all.
Oh, thank you so much. As soon as you started talking, I said, I know he's about to go, when I was in the car about to cry on that video. Basically, y'all, I walked out of a midterm. I did not even finish the midterm. And at that point, I said, okay, I know I failed it. And I think I ended up getting like a 30% or something, but I ended up getting a B in the class. So yeah. You will see some.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I'm in biostatistics now, and we're taking final exams this week. So that's funny as well.
Good luck. You got it.
We did have one question. What was your favorite or most influential class in your program? And what made it so memorable for you, and how did it shape you?
There are two that I can think of, and they were honestly both electives, I think. One was called Aging, what is it called? Aging in Public Health or something like that. And in that class, we didn't have any tests, any assignments. I think we might have had like a reflection paper at the end, but it was basically our teacher would have speakers come in every week. And as long as we participated, that was all we did in the class, which makes me believe that as much stuff as some of these classes have us doing, they don't even necessarily need to do that for us to remember and fully take in what we're doing. But that class really shaped how I thought about aging in general. And we learned about a lot of different topics like palliative care. There was one week where a woman came and talked about death and dying, which I was so scared when I saw that on the syllabus. But she works, what does she do? I forgot what she does, but basically she works around a lot of people that are dying. So she talked about how it changed the way she thought about death and dying. And it was a really good class. Like, I can't even put it into words because we talked about so many things. And one class, one of our classmates, grandma came, and I think she might have been like 102 and she spoke to us. So it was just a class where we got to really learn a lot and appreciate, yeah, hospice. There we go. That's what she worked in. We really got to appreciate like the full realm of life. So that was one. And then another one was diverse communities. In that class, once again, we didn't do that many like papers. I don't think we had any tests, but we did a lot of impactful things. And one thing I remember in particular was an assignment that we had to do. It was a group assignment. We were all assigned a different type of diverse community, and we had to interview someone that worked in there. And our teacher assigned us, who we would be talking to, what the diverse community was. And ironically, my group's diverse community was sex workers. So we got to talk to a woman that was an ex-sex worker, and she does like sex therapy, like that type of thing. And it was just so interesting. And of course, if you had any type of judgment around that, like, you didn't by the end of it, because it was just that eye-opening and that good. So we learned a lot about the legislation that goes into sex work, and how some of the legislation is like harmful to, even though it's supposed to like keep them safer, it doesn't necessarily do that in a lot of ways. So yeah, that both of those were really good classes that I enjoyed, and they weren't super hard. So I don't believe that classes have to be hard to be impactful.
Any other questions that you guys have? Okay, well, if not, Natasha, just wanted to say thank you so much again on behalf of the Public Health Student Organization at Benedictine University. Appreciate you coming this evening, taking time out of your schedule to speak to us, to kind of increase our knowledge so that we're aware of the work that you do and just your experiences. If anyone wanted to connect with you, how would they be able to reach you?
Can we find you here? So on LinkedIn, I'm just Natasha A. Marshall. And then I'll put my email in here. If you want to email me, or you can go to YouTube. Like, it's so many options, really.
Nice. Well, we will definitely stay connected. Thank you so much. Again, we appreciate you and the work that you're doing. You're definitely making a difference in the lives of the women that are in Texas. And I'm hoping that there'll be other movements similar to that, which there might be in our communities, but that we'll be able to connect with those campaigns. So thank you again.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed.
Everyone have a great night and good luck with finals.
Good luck.